we're pleased to be really the leader in what we call the altcoin space, which is essentially everything that's not Bitcoin or Ethereum. And particularly now that digital assets are coming to the forefront, I think it's a tremendous opportunity for us to be able to connect with investors who are looking for things beyond Bitcoin and embrace things in digital assets.
Hello, you're watching Proactive. I'm joined by Robby Young. He's CEO of investments at Animoca Brands. Robby, very good to speak with you. This proposed reverse merger with Currenc Group would bring Animoca to Nasdaq. What's the strategic thinking behind pursuing a US listing now?
Sure. So I think, there are several different catalysts. Obviously, we were previously listed on the ASX. We delisted in 2020. And so ever since, we were clear with shareholders that it was our intention to relist the business when the time was right. And I think one of the things that we particularly noticed was a shift in the regulatory landscape in the US beginning at the end of last year, where it seemed like, there was kind of a reverse going on from being very hostile towards anything having to do with blockchain and crypto generally, to being frankly embracing of it. So now that we've seen, passing of things like the Genius Act in the US and clarity around stablecoins and other types of tokenization, we see a huge opportunity actually to lean into that regulatory clarity, and pursue a listing in the US.
Animoca shareholders are expected to own about 95% of the combined company. What advantages do you see this structure bringing to existing investors?
Or I think, for existing investors, and of course, thank you to those who are watching for being patient shareholders with us all these years. I think it it gives the potential for them to unlock value through, the company being listed once again, on global equity capital markets. I think also specifically with respect to the US versus our position in Australia, it is true that the US capital markets are larger and more deep. And so this may bode well in the future should we be able to tap into some of that additional liquidity.
Animoca already has one of the largest portfolios in the digital asset space. How would a Nasdaq listing help unlock or expand the value of that portfolio?
Sure. I think that the portfolio first, we've carefully kind of curated this portfolio over the years. We're pleased to be really the leader in what we call the altcoin space, which is essentially everything that's not Bitcoin or Ethereum. And particularly now that digital assets are coming to the forefront, I think it's a tremendous opportunity for us to be able to connect with investors who are looking for things beyond Bitcoin and embrace things in digital assets. Specifically with regards to the US, I think we have a lot of projects that, can operate within not only the regulatory frameworks of things like the Genius Act. Obviously we have an anchor point joint venture with Standard Chartered Bank with respect to stablecoins. We have a new joint venture um, with the Provenance blockchain called Nuva, focused on RWAs or real world assets. And this, partnership obviously is with a US based RWA blockchain. And the main assets that we're tokenizing there are assets from the Figure portfolio of home equity loans in the US. So in fact, there's a strong US connection there.
I mean, beyond the merger, what's the next growth drivers for Animoca in areas like real-world asset tokenization, AI, and Web3 gaming as we head into 2026?
Sure. I think that for real world asset tokenization, I think that this ship is firmly underway, and we see that reflected across the digital asset space. This is true from everything like traditional assets like gold to real estate. As I mentioned, that's the focus of our Nuva joint venture, to other types of digital native assets. And gaming actually is one of those categories. So we think there's going to be a strong resurgence in gaming tokenization, frankly, and that makes us, I think, probably kind of at the leading edge in terms of being poised to take advantage of that. I mean, to be realistic, the gaming sector has been very hard hit across the board. This is not just a Web3 phenomenon. It's been a game industry kind of sluggish growth story. And we think Web3 is really the way to unlock some of that value. So we're quite excited. We have great games like NHS and the Sandbox, et cetera, that are actually really connecting and resonating with players and users.
Robby, I hope you'll continue to keep us updated with your progress. Thank you very much for taking the time today.
Fantastic. Thank you for having me.
Very welcome, Robby Young, CEO of Investments at Animoca Brands.